so just let me out.
That clock keeps ticking like a metronome, and my thoughts keep telling me to get me home, but my boss keep telling me to let me out.
In our vast industry, products come and go, some having never been seen or even heard of by consumers. Companies rise and fall, and sometimes a creation with provenance whittles away and becomes a shadow of its former glory. I believe that this is the case with the Rolex Air-King, a watch that should share equal, if not a greater spotlight with today's modern Rolex sports watches, like the Explorer, the Submariner, but instead has been filed away. And as a designer, I see the watch's provenance as an opportunity to take and create a piece of design worthy of its past. And in today's discussion, I hope to persuade you. This suggestion was courtesy of Anton, and as always, if you would like a watch topic of yours discussed by a designer, comment them below and I'll write them up. The Air-King name dates back to the Second World War. After the war was over in 1945, the line was created specifically for RAF pilots. At the time, it was measured to be 34 millimeters in diameter and considered large in size, hence the name King was used. It was the one name that outlasted the other watches that were introduced by Rolex, like the Air Giant, the Air Tiger, and the Air Lion. No idea who was responsible with those names in the marketing team. The initial design of the watch was very basic, but adopted a dial that was more focused towards using numerals instead of batons. This was probably done partly because of legibility for pilots, but also an approach that was more accepted during the time. The case design, even at this point in history, looks very similar to what we would expect to see from a modern Oyster case. One of the giveaways is the vintage engine-turned crown. But fast forward to the late 50s, the Air-King adopted a formula that would see it all the way through to the modern era, going from a 34mm case to a 36, and adopting a simple dial layout, primarily in grey. At this point in time, the watch was considered an entry-level watch, and has since stayed in the same position. We can piece together the rest. But the question is, should it not be more than that? Why, after only being around for just over 10 years, was it left to the wayside, while other names of Rolex watches flourished? Isn't it a cool novelty that this piece was designed with conviction to be given to pilots? Just because it never summited Everest, or sunk to one of the lowest depths in the ocean, does it not deserve a position as being a premier sports watch too? Nowadays, the Air-King line has almost been phased out. Yes, there are a few examples, and they come with dials reminiscent of the Explorer motif. One such model that grabs my attention is the 11-4-200 with a deep navy blue dial. There is something really desirable about such a royal-looking color, and I wish there could be more models like that today. Other models have been given small nuances like a salmon dial and an engine-turned bezel, but on the whole, the watch has never been able to shake itself away from being a watch that has been assembled from the spare parts bin. Speaking of spare parts, let's look at the modern return of the Air-King that has just arrived. If not a revival, it has gained some attention over the years. I'll let you in on a secret. This watch was made to sell the older Explorer dial as it was being phased out for the modern iteration. It's clear that this watch's intention was to move the remaining stock of the white gold 3, 6, and 9 numerals. But putting that aside, what is it like from a design point of view? I might be in the minority when I say that I like it. I do wish the watch's white gold numerals were also loomed and white, adding to the congruence, but the core element of having the 5 minutes printed on the dial is reminiscent of Aviator watches, and that is something really cool. I also think a touch of green and yellow is a nice addition. It gives the watch a more classical feel. But one thing has always stuck out to me about it though, and I warn you that after I show you this, you'll never see the watch the same way again. You have been warned. That glorious 55 at the top of the dial where the 11 marker should be. Look how it breaks up the space, and the symmetry overall. This was a serious oversight, and one that I cannot forgive, because the remedy to fix the dial is so simple. So let's do that quickly. What do you notice about the numerals on the dial? They all consist of 2 numerals. Be it 10, 20, 30, you get the picture. Except one, the little 5 sitting alone in the corner. And like magic, it's fixed. But putting that aside, what could be done to revitalize the name of the Air-King for the modern era? How could this watch be reintroduced into a position where it stands toe-to-toe with the likes of the Explorer, the GMT, and the Submariner? I'm so glad you asked that question, and I think I have an answer. The design direction is so simple, it's actually tiring to repeat because some people have mentioned the idea before. Reintegrate the turnograph case with a modern approach. Since the Thunderbird saw a lot of success in its day, and since this watch was originally aimed at RAF pilots, why not give it a bit of pilot flair? Design is all about throwing it all in and seeing what sticks. Here I've come up with a few models as examples. A variant with a white dial, a black dial, a navy dial, and a modern dial. As a result, we have a design that is not a Datejust. It is not an Explorer, and has a unique element of a bezel for the purpose of countdown timing. It is both a sport and dress-orientated watch, making it a perfect one-watch choice for somebody. Of course, this design is not for everyone's tastes, but you get the point, I hope. I personally like the craziness of the modern dial with a turnograph bezel. Yes, it doesn't make sense. Yes, it's visually jarring. But hey, it's a pilot's watch. You can't tell me that the Navi timer always makes sense when you look at it. And the white dial? Oh, the white dial. In the end, I'm trying to say that it is not difficult to create a breakout model for the Air-King. It's easy, and the watch deserves it. All the pieces are already there. And when you are a brand like Rolex, the world is your oyster.